Roger, let me see.
Are we back? Is this the 2018 Porch Moment?
The 2018 Porch Moment, hopefully.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Good to be back. Good to be in the zone.
So what happened over the holidays with you? Anything exciting? I know we're both kind of disappointed about last night, but we got to look at reframe our thought process.
Oh, man, I was feeling better. You drop it back in the morning. Oh, for those that don't know, we're both from Oklahoma, and Oklahoma barely lost last night, so that was a sad night. But I understand from my stepson that it was an awesome game, so they showed up and they did their best, and they just got bettered. So it's time to move on, time for the 2018 football season to start. Let's move forward.
Just move forward.
Yeah, the Baker Mayfield era is over in Oklahoma and going to start anew.
And you got two events coming up. You're going to be with Peggy Denny today, not actually doing the show, but taping her show.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
And then tomorrow I'm doing Your Carolina for Channel 7.
Great.
So I'm very excited about that. Because it's funny how much in my lifetime being on television has been a thing. It's not for everybody, and it's interesting. My wife Suzanne, she'll never be on television, and on me, if there's one in a mile radius, I'm finding that I'm getting on TV. I love TV. I love everything about TV. I love the whole concept. I can remember when I was little bitty and being in a TV station and thinking, this is a deal. So I'm excited about tomorrow. Two shows tomorrow.
And obviously we believe it. While this is not quote-unquote TV, it is a way to expand hopefully some knowledge and ideas out there. The one thing we like about Facebook Live is we do have the opportunity for two-way feedback when we get it. TV, you'll get the feedback. They'll eventually have to figure that out, how to get the audience to start doing it. And you'll be kind of just expanding and taking forward the message we're going to be talking about today, and that's becoming a visionary in 2018. And you know, what does that look like? What do we even mean by becoming a visionary in 2018? And I think the original thing I set out with versus being a naysayer. Do we catch ourselves being naysayers, and how do we reprogram ourselves to be visionaries and stop ourselves when we see the naysaying?
Well, I think, Rick, at the bottom line, you have to be purposeful. I think if there's a message we want to send out to our people, it's important right now to be purposeful. It's having a purpose. Too many times, just like 2017, it ended and people went, what happened? It's because they wandered through 2017, and if they don't watch, they're going to wander through 2018. It's important to have purpose, to set purpose, and to lay things down in writing about where you want your life to go, what you want your life to mean. It's funny that when you aim at nothing, you hit it 100% of the time.
And so when we're talking about purpose, of course, we're drill a little bit further in that. We're talking about setting goals and getting those goals put down in writing. And I know that there's some interesting statistics out there about goals.
Right. I love the idea that they did a study a while back about the power of writing a goal down. And they found that the people who wrote them down had a much grander chance of successfully reaching those goals than people who didn't set any goals at all. And that's what people do all the time, Rick. They talk about, I've got a goal. You say, I got a goal. And they kind of, well, what are your goals? Well, let me think about it. I want to do this. But you never hear of them, or you seldom hear of them at the end of the year go, hey, I accomplished that. No, it were the people who said, I set down this goal. This was the goal I had. And I worked on that goal every day. it wasn't that I reached that goal right, in the first week, the first month, or the first 6 months. No, and we both talked about it, the Carolina Panthers phrase. They kept pounding.
Yeah.
They kept pounding. They kept pounding. They kept pounding. They kept at it. They were clear. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And when we hear about champions, that's what you notice about champions in our life, is these are people who set a goal down, who wrote a goal down, and focused and pounded on that goal. It was not like the first time they tried, boom, they got that goal. That's not how it works. We want to believe that. Oh, I was watching a special the other night, Rick, on Walt Disney, and I loved it. It was like he was rejected all the time. Number one, he grew up in like a little farm area and was almost starving, and his family struggled, and so he went out and he tried to do this cartoon stuff, and people went, this isn't any good, and he was rejected and rejected. But the one thing you notice about Walt Disney, Rick, that man kept pounding, and then later on, Disneyland was an idea he had. There was no Disneyland. There was nothing like Disneyland. But he decided, I'm going to go buy this property, in California, and I'm going to build this fantasy area that people could go to on a regular basis. And so it was things like that that really made a difference, that where you set that goal and you reach that goal.
And that's also a good example of the concept of visionary and naysayer. Again, he had the vision. He saw what other people didn't see. And you can imagine how many naysayers were in his life. Walt.
Yeah, man.
You just need to stay at that drawing board and keep drawing that little house of yours.
Go back to farming. How many times do you think people told him to get back to farming?
I'm sure the majority of people did.
Oh, my goodness.
Nobody's going to go to California and want to walk around and see a mouse.
Well, now, and the funny thing is, if you go now, there's town built around, it's built way past it. But at the time, that thing was in the country. And to have the vision that people are going to come out of LA and go there and spend, if anybody told you were ever going to spend over $100 a person to be at an amusement park, you would have said, you got to be kidding me. No way. I'm not ever going to spend over $100. But every day people spend way over $100 here, in California and in Florida, every day, gladly handing it over to be part of that experience. And to have that vision, and Rick, in the back, there was a piece of him in the back of his mind saying, what am I thinking? What is going on here? And bankers, he was struggling with bankers. They didn't want to give him the money to do that. And he had to make arrangements with the television company at the time to help finance that. And it all came together. And again, the one thing I love about it, again, a tremendous volume of naysayers. But Walt kept pounding. He kept pounding. And, did he wear down physically? Yes. Did he wear down emotionally? Yes. Did he struggle to find people who were on his side? Yes. And it's fascinating when people reach a goal, how many people are like, way to go,
yeah, really,
behind you 100%, who were naysayers before. And we've talked about this, Rick, where it's easy to be a naysayer. It is so, it's fallen off a log to be a naysayer. Who couldn't say you can't get it done? I always love this phrase, always and never.
Yep.
We never did it this way. We always did it that way. He said, whenever you hear that, run. Because, man, whoever's saying that is stuck. And that's a big issue, being stuck.
And I think that's a good point. First of all, Kim has brought up a good point. He says, what if you change the word goal to promise? A promise to someone who cares for them. And, that's one thing about goals is the other part we learn about setting goals is you have to share those goals with somebody for accountability. Only because while you can hold yourself accountable for them, it's always better if you let somebody else in on your goals. So again, you have that mentoring, that accountability, and so forth. And then Mike, you say you think we need daily, weekly, and monthly goals. And again, we do have to look at them. There are things called short-term and long-term goals.
Yeah, right.
And the main thing about goals are the SMART concept. But are they measurable, and are they are they timely? And what are our timely goals?
And one thing I like to think of, Rick, as we're talking about goals, is thinking of goals as brain food. Goals are brain food. So much of the time we're not feeding our brain. We're not giving it the nutrition to really perform at the top level.
Right.
But goals are quality food for the brain. It gives the brain something to focus on. It gives the brain something to latch onto and to feed off of. And there's where, the Bible said that a country without vision fails.
Right.
Even way back in the day, there it was, right there. You gotta have vision.
Well, and again, back in both the Old and New Testament, part of the prophecy work was these are men that had visions, and today, if you kind of use that term, but there is a prophecy in the idea of visions. Disney, of course, had the vision. The infamous stories behind Steve Jobs and how many people told him the iPhone was nothing but a big joke and nobody would ever use.
Dick Tracy, man.
Yeah. And,
being able to talk on the phone, man.
I forgot who was leading Microsoft at the time, but in one of his famous interviews talking about, are you going to go out there? Who's going to go out there and buy a refrigerator with a toaster built into it? Nobody. Well, who's going to go buy this phone with a iPod built in it? Nobody.
And man, then you could mark on the map pre-iPhone, post-iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much it changed everything about us. How many people today still have a landline? Wow, that's a big thing now, is that if you've got a phone, you've got an iPhone, or you got a Google phone or whatever. It's a mobile phone. You seldom have, at my house, that we have no landline in our house. If you'd have ever told me there'd be a day in which there would be no landline in my house, I'd have gone, yeah, that's ridiculous. We got to have a phone. I grew up with a phone, and I've always had a phone. But I don't have one now, and I haven't had one for years. Got a mobile phone, take it everywhere, And I one of the things that's very interesting is with my child, I had a child in Atlanta, and to think that I would drive to Atlanta and back with no phone, no connection. I would just be in a car.
No GPS.
No GPS, none of that, man. I just get on the interstate and go. And I do that every other weekend for years.
Yep.
But, man, if I get in the phone now, I don't care if it's a block. I got my phone with me. I do not want to be somewhere where I can't make contact and let people know I'm out of gas, or I'm broke down, or I'm whatever. The fact that I would so trustingly do that is a different day.
But also there is that addictive process to it, and we have to admit that we even are brought into that concept. And what I mean by that is, how many times have you left, or have you ever left the house and left the phone there, and you figure it out about a mile or two down the road, and you start, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I turn around and
I turn around. I won't turn around because it's going to bother me that I don't have a phone.
And yet, like you,
but there are years, not days, years that went by.
Well, in the mid-'90s, I was working either in Knoxville, Atlanta, or Johnson City, Tennessee. What I mean by that is that was my district.
Yeah.
But I would come home on the weekends and get the girls, and didn't have a phone, didn't have a GPS. But actually, I enjoyed those drives because that's when I would turn the radio off, and I'd have 3 hours. just to
just a
I
process.
have to be with myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that was, yeah, and I think that's a good concept. If we're talking about goals, I think it's important to integrate in there the idea of noise. That noise makes it very hard to have significant goals. And what we've replaced many times with goals is noise. Is we just noise up things, noise on the radio, noise on talking to people, noise on the iPhones. We just constantly noise, and we just absolutely don't let our mind settle in, settle down. It seemed like years ago having your mind settle down was a big thing, and now it seems like people are, I can't settle it down. And then I hear a lot of people get ready to go to bed, and they lay down and they say this phrase, I can't turn my brain off.
Yep.
Oh, that is a terrible place to be.
Even to the point where they have to be listening to something to go to sleep.
Oh, without a doubt. If it's nothing more than a noise machine. I love that people buy a noise machine to make it sound like it's raining, to make it sound like it's doing something else out there, or playing some tune. And that's one thing between my wife and I we struggle with is if you turn on the TV, I cannot go to sleep.
Yeah.
But she can have the TV on and fall asleep. I'm like, how do you do that? How do you turn your brain? I can't keep my brain from being focused on that image flittering out there and going like that. So I think it's important to find your path. That's also kind of in this whole idea of being a visionary.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be your vision. You have to have your visionary way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you go with other people, but you've got to find your lane and stick in it. Some people, like you were saying before, they've got to do it goals day by day. Other people have to do goals week by week, month by month. And my thought in that is good. You're sitting down and you're telling your brain what to do. You're helping, you're feeding your brain. And number one, and I think that's at the core of all this, is you're focusing your brain. I think it is hard to get your brain focused. And you can tell people that, again, like we talked about with Walt Disney, he had a focused brain. Did everybody like that? No. Did everybody agree with that? No. But nobody else did Disneyland either. No. That's the difference there.
And even to the point where, if you guys have ever been out to, I can't speak for Disneyland, Disney World, just how a vision is created, even in something that, some things that you don't even think about. But, if you ever go to Disney World and you haven't been able to go through one of the tours or hear about how the park's designed, notice that when you walk in, you actually are going up a little bit of an incline because you're excited, the kids are running, and so you have energy, and so you got that going. And the first thing you see is, of course, the castle. The castle dimensionally is built to make it look, and I forgot how you would do that. I don't know if the top is built larger than to proportion, or the bottom would be built large. But anyway, they got it built where it's not proportionally right as far as if you were building a real castle, but they got it proportionally built where it looks larger than it really is as you walk in. And then at the end of the day, when you're exhausted, now you're going downhill. And, but they even be thinking about stuff like that you got.
Well, there it is, Rick. I think it's you've got to quiet your mind to think like that. Mm-hmm. That's not what we call normal thinking. Normal thinking is surviving. Can you get your brain to operate enough to survive? Yes. But what we're talking about on today's show is the thriving brain, getting your brain to thrive and being aware enough to even think about the dimensions. Think of that. Would the ordinary person think we need to adjust the dimensions of the castle for how people viewed it, since it's not a structure to live in? I would say 99.9% of the people would be like, say what? That wouldn't even cross their mind. But for the people who've walked in and seen that, it had an effect.
Yeah.
And somebody had to have been focused enough to get that at the onset. You know, it's not about, you know, I would love to say a great vision is a vision that everybody agrees on. And I would be fibbing if I said that. I just would. It's just not true. It is not about an agreement. It's about a focus. You know, do you believe this? Are you in on this? And are you willing to keep pounding? The first pound seldom knocks over the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant wearing down of an issue. And I think one of the things I've learned as I've grown older is life is not a sprint. It is not how fast you get. Because some of the people who got out fast didn't make it down the road at all very well. They crashed and burned. But there are a group of people who saw life as a marathon race. 26.3 is it? Miles?
26 something miles.
Yeah, 26. The 26. I did the 26 inside the last few miles.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And there's people that run even longer ones now. But if you think you can do that like a sprint, you've lost already.
Yeah. Gwen's saying, you know, trying to focus slowly, and that's the other thing. I do think there's something with the neurobiology of the brain today where we do put it in hyperdrive because of all the stimulation we have around.
Yes,
and
no doubt about it.
And we are being unfortunately negatively impacted by that inability to, as you just got through saying, and what we're hearing a lot of is I just cannot slow my mind down, or I just cannot go into a phase that I feel relaxed, because again, I know you and I both see a lot of people that are dealing with anxiety and depression, which go hand in hand, and yet they don't know what and why the anxiety is there. They just know that they wake up anxious and
right. They just have, and that's something I see a lot of, Rick, is people without a mental braking system.
Mm-hmm.
Their ability to break their minds and slow it down and adjust to the curves. You know, there's a real art to driving, and there is a real art to thinking. And that's why I think one of the things we're seeing more of is people meditating. I think people meditate as a braking system, as a way of, I've got to slow down. And we certainly, in this visionary program today, want to encourage people to set aside time
Mm-hmm.
to break, to set aside a time to slow down. You know, I love when I was looking at a special on sleeping, and one of the things they said, Rick, was the importance of the process of going to sleep. Not going to sleep, the process of going to sleep. And they said to sleep properly, you need to start going to sleep 2 hours
Mm-hmm.
before you go to bed. You know, what you drink, what you eat, what you watch, what you feed your brain, all powerful elements.
And again, that's, you know, God knew what He was doing when He designed the body and the release of the melatonin, and yet again, we live in a world of technology where we're fighting everything that God designed. We're putting barriers up against it. They talk about the lights that come off your computer screen right before you go to bed, and like I said, eating right before you go to bed, and so forth.
And drinking, what you drink. You know, what the person on TV that I was watching said, coffee not after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to take that long for the caffeine to process through your system to a place to where you can stop your brain or slow your brain down enough so that it can accept sleep.
Yeah.
And I think people who do not rest properly, who do not take care of themselves, It's hard to be a visionary in poor mental and emotional status. I think it is very, very hard. People say, "Oh, I'm just going to keep pushing, and they don't realize there's a law of diminishing returns in that.
And so again, as we get ready to go into 2018, I think you and I both agreed 2017 for ourselves was also a little bit of a challenge. And I'm sure, but again, I guess we should also and that's the other part of visionary is being realistic about it. Whenever, Zig Ziglar was big on all this is, yeah, you have to be realistic as to what happens to you in life. He talks about the story of the first, he was the youngest regional manager for the first company he worked for, which was selling pots and pans, and in Knoxville, Tennessee. And again, he didn't go out there and say, "Oh, I had this vision that this was going to be a great industry. I'm going to do well." No, he said, "No, I got this job because I need money."
Right.
And so
he was realistic.
Yeah, but then he got into it, and then he said, he was in a division that did real well, was doing real well, so we thought this would be kind of an easy thing to do. And then all of a sudden, one of the other regional managers had a heart attack. Another guy had some issues with, I guess, truthfulness and so forth. And then they started hearing that there was talk about firing him because the district was going down. And he said, I could have been there and said, "Oh, poor pitiful me. I had nothing to do with these things. They were out of my control." But no, he said, "This was my first lesson learning that I have to be realistic. Yeah, these things are happening, and yes, my numbers are down.
Right.
So what am I going to do?" So he said he came up again. He created a vision of what did each division need, what had to be done in each one. So it's going back, instead of letting the problem be the driving force, he was looking for the solutions.
Rick, and I love what you're saying there. Let's not say in 2018 that we're not going to find some ditches.
Because we are.
We're going to find ditches. But it's not about getting in the ditch. It's about getting out of the ditch. That's what makes all the difference in the world, is getting out of the ditch. And that's what we're talking about today, is we're telling people right up front, ditches are coming in 2018. They're coming. There's ditches out there. Zig Ziglar, the great Zig Ziglar, found ditches that he got in. And you can stay stuck in the ditches. And you can say, "Ain't it awful?" That's available out there. That's going to happen out there. But if what we're saying today is, if you write down and focus, you're not going to allow yourself, your brain is not going to allow you to stay in an emotional ditch for a year. It is not going to do that. It's going to say, "Yeah, I got in the ditch. Yeah, that's not the most optimum place. Things that I didn't expect this, but I'm going to take lemons and I'm going to make lemonade out of them, and I'm going to go forward."
And one of the things I would encourage everyone out there, as far as one of the potential goals you have for 2018, because again, some of the stuff I've been reading is kind of ironic I'm using that word, but in the fact that Zig Ziglar, if you read his story, as a matter of fact, this story I just told you, it goes back, he was in Knoxville, Tennessee,
right.
And he did get to that point. He was getting to the point, why me, so forth. And he says he was walking downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, and he looked at a bookstore, and here's a new book. So we're talking about mid to late 50s. He says, "Here's this new book called The Power of Positive Thinking by this guy, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale." and
that new book.
Yeah, that new book. But he said he went in and got it. He said to himself, "This is what I need. I need to be thinking more positively." So he went in and got the book, and his own mission was this idea of trying to find solutions, not dwelling on the problem, and trying to accept what's going on. Was actually his reading the book of Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, and so but throughout his career, he made it very clear that he was a reader, and then the gentleman, I can't think of his name, but the gentleman who invented this idea on the internet, like if you go to Amazon and you buy something and then you put it in your cart, and you'll see the people who bought this also bought this and this and this, and the gentleman who designed that is the same thing. He said, basically, I just read, and this is where I get, and again, we talked about technology. I would encourage, one of the goals everybody puts out there is, what is a realistic number of books, and read books that are outside your what I would call normalcy or life.
Your comfort zone.
Yeah, your comfort zone, and find books on different
Expand
subjects.
your mind. Feed your mind has to be fed.
Exactly. And see what kind of visions are created for you then when you start turn that TV off and using that time to feed the mind. I heard it one time and I like it. TV. People think it stands for television. It really, I think we shared this one time before, but it really stands for time vacuum.
I love that. And it can be.
Oh, yeah.
There are people that, and I love the phrase zoning out, that people can sit and zone out, watch TV, and they just, or be on a computer, and you say, what happened in the last 2 hours? And then go, don't know. I was doing this, and my mind kind of clicked off and went into what we call white noise. And there are some people that is their mode of operation, Rick. They are white noisers. They're not feeding their brain. They're not in any kind of activity that stretches them. And it's a wonder. A part of visionary is, when we think of high school, and how many friends did you have in high school? And then equate, how many friends have you made since high school? And what people find out is, I had 20, 30 friends, 50 friends in high school. And I don't have anybody that I've made a friend. I guess the person I connect with, or the people I connected with when I was in high school. Ooh, what's being fed? Are you in a zone? Have you zoned out in life? And then again, as we're talking about here with being a visionary, how is it possible to be a visionary when you're not in an environment to be a visionary? We just, birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah. Good point, because as you said, visionary takes thinking time. And if we start taking the thinking time out of our lives, then you don't have the visionary there, because you're right, and I know one of the challenges I have when we use the word meditation, especially those in the faith-based and following the Christian religion, is remember that this is not, when we use the word meditate, is not an Eastern religion concept we're talking about. Prayer is meditation.
Right.
Jesus did not say, all right, guys, let's all gather around here and pray. When he truly wanted to be refocused and when he wanted to be re-energized, what did he do? He went off by himself.
Yeah, he went to the desert.
Yeah.
In a quiet place. And I guess that's part of what we want to encourage our viewers to think about. Do you, as a visionary, have a quiet place? Do you, as a visionary, feed your brain? Do you, as a visionary, have written down goals? That's what we're trying to encourage today.
And when you write those goals, it doesn't mean that they have to be concrete, because goals are flexible too. It's just, do you have that roadmap in front of you so you know where you were going? And Kim mentioned, one of the things he likes about, Mike said, one thing he likes about goals is they do give you a sense of accomplishment. And there is something to be said about checking off goals. You do have a sense of accomplishment, but more specifically, it's going back what Roger said, is, 2015, 2016, 2017, before you know it, 2018 will be over.
Yes.
And again, is it going to be just another year you just floated through it, or is this going to be the year you're going to create and make be specific about your goals and your visions and start that direction? And
we don't want people to spend this year, Rick, wandering around. That is not a well-lived life. Is a life in which I'm just emotionally wandering from one stop to the other. If I told you, I want you to drive to New Orleans, but I didn't give you a map.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I just said, get on 85 and travel south, and eventually you're going to get to New Orleans. Chances of you getting there is real close to zero. And just wandering up and down and through Alabama and Mississippi and everything. But when you have a map and you're going, okay, I went from Greenville, and I went from Greenville to Atlanta, and I went from Atlanta to Mobile, then you're marking your progression. Excuse me, your progression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so powerful.
And I'm going to tell you guys right now that are late teens to mid to late 20s, if you hear the phrase or the concept of wandering for 40 years, you may say, well, that will never happen. That, is a forever time. But guess what? One day you're going to be in your 60s, and that wandering for 40 years is going to be
in a
realistic.
wink of an eye.
Exactly.
In a wink of an eye, Rick.
Be realistic.
That is powerful.
If you don't start some of these ideas today, when you got these opportunities, because a lot of times you will find that the jobs you get into and the people that you associate with and life that goes on is, again, just because you were wandering and that just happened to be the first guy who called you when you sent your resume out without having a vision as to what do I want to do with my life.
Right. Does this fit? Is this where I want to go? And two things that are very powerful here, Rick, is knowing when to say yes, mm-hmm. and the other side is knowing when to say no. I've seldom met people I said yes and no all at the right time. I seldom hear that. I hear people say with regret, oh, I should have let that one go. I should have let that one go by. And if I would have, I would have been open mm-hmm. for a different experience, for a different opportunity. And what helps you with yes or no? What we're saying today is written down goals help you with yes and no. Does this fit my goal? Does this fit my vision? Is this who I see me to be? Is this consistent with who I want to become?
Yeah.
And being able to focus on that makes the chances of you hitting that target much greater if you do that.
And going back to Mike's idea of the timeliness of goals, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. Now, the good part of technology is it gives us tools to be more effective in certain aspects of life. And what I mean by that is it does you no good if you write down your goals and put them up somewhere and don't ever bring them back out. Well,
amen.
But I know for a fact that both the Android and the iPhone, if you do a search under goals in the stores, you'll find plenty of free apps that will help you with your goals, but you'll always have it there with you. So you need to write them down or dictate them or whatever you want to do, but you also have to have them accessible so you can see and keep track of where you're at with the goals.
And a key word here, Rick, is accountability. Mm-hmm. Number one concept is goals, but the number two concept is accountability of those goals. Like you said, if you make a goal, I'm going to lose 10 pounds this year, and I write that on a piece of paper and I put that on the shelf, and I don't pull it off the shelf till December, then I didn't get back, I didn't lose it. No. But if I put that down and I'm checking it every week or every month, and I'm taking it off the shelf, and I'm saying, what am I eating? Is my activities, are my choices in line? It's not possible to lose weight and eat food 24/7. Those are contrary. And the only way you're going to get that is if you hold yourself and have other people hold you accountable. Yeah. And that's what you said a minute ago, the importance of letting people know.
And
that is powerful.
I guess one of the more famous acronyms out there are what they call SMART goals. And all that means is, is your goal specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And is it timely? So again, going back to this idea of losing weight, the goal would be I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next 90 days. And so, it's a specific goal. It's attainable because losing 10 pounds in 90 days. It's measurable because you know how much you're losing on the thing.
Right.
It's attainable. It's realistic. Once again, it's nothing that any doctor can tell you, especially if you are overweight, is not a realistic goal. And it's time specific, 90 days. It could be 10 pounds in 180 days, whatever it is. But then you put that goal down and you keep track of it. And same thing conversely the other way. If in 2018 I'm going to make $100,000, in 2018
I'm going to make $100,000 in one day.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to make what?
Well, you might, but the bank and the police will have a different idea for you.
Good question how that happened.
Yeah. So that might be specific. It might be measurable. It might be attainable, but realistic, no, because you probably have other realistic goals that you want to do with the money you make, and in prison for 30 years is not going to probably help you with that.
And one of the things we have to mention here, Rick, is how people love to make fake promises. Like, you can make $100,000 a day. Well, wow, that a lot of people are going to be attracted to that. But the thing you have to ask yourself is it realistic? Is it something that's obtainable? Is it something I can do? Very few people who need to lose a lot of weight don't want to lose weight right now. But I've never met people who've lost a lot of weight right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've met a lot of people who say, I need to lose weight. They have a weight loss program. They have a behavioral program, and they follow that program, and the next time you see them, they've lost that weight. It's doable, but there is a process in doing it. And there's always going to be a draw to the easy and effortless. People are always going to be attracted to, you don't have to do anything, you just sit and you lose what? I always call it pill therapy. Take a pill, it's all done, you're all cured. People love that, but they don't look at what's the cost behind it. And so much of the time, the cost, and I can remember my wife taking some pills for dentistry. She had a dental procedure. She said, those pills were great, but I had to stop taking them because if I didn't, it was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the backside of it. And boy, there it is right there. People who don't question that.
Yeah.
People, again, if you had accountability, somebody saying, I don't think you need to take that pill. And people don't like that. So they do things in secret. They do things in the dark. They do things behind people's back because they know people are not going to approve of it.
Yeah. Mike, when you say make sure you don't have fake goals, what are some examples? What do you mean by that? What would be a fake goal that we would understand? No, I mean, he's got a good point because I do think I'm not quite sure.
I think I don't want to speak for him, but I think fake goals are other people's goals,
Okay.
Other people's dreams, other people's vision. I mean, it's easy for us to be wooed by the dreams of others. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so much more powerful to have your own dream, even if nobody gets it.
Yeah, and he says it's also things you already do on a daily basis. So these are basically goals that have been accomplished or things that go. And that's a great point, Mike, because a goal is again created that as we started off the conversation. If we're going to be visionaries in 2018, then the goals that we are talking about have to be driving that vision for this year and going forward. And if we're saying go, oh, I'll write down these goals, knowing that we're already doing them and accomplishing them. Just to say, I got.
Just that I say. To your goals, it has to be in move that you have of you. That is a true goal.
And I think the neat thing about goals is that they can drive you to even. I don't know if the right word is better goals or stronger goals. And what I mean by that is, I remember last Father's Day, Cheryl we have some trail bikes, and she had them fixed up for me.
But she, Good, go, Rick, ride the bike.
But she had them fixed up, so exactly. And my first thought, I'll be honest with you, I was mad at first because I said, I don't want to ride a bike. I don't get out
the bike riding.
I don't want to get out in the heat and so forth. but then I finally said, okay, let's do it. And I think the first time Cheryl and I got those bikes out, I haven't ridden a bike in 40 years, maybe 50 years. And first time I got the bike out, I think we rode like a half a mile or a mile. And I said, all right, that wasn't too bad. And before you knew it, I actually got into bike riding. I forgot how fun it was. I forgot what a good exercise is. And by the end of the season, it actually does get cold here in South Carolina, guys. If you don't think it is.
Right. It's cold today in South Carolina if you're somewhere else.
But I was up to between 8 and 10 miles, which to bike riders is nothing. But to me, it was so I kind of set that goal out, and it was neat to feel that accomplishment, like Mike is saying. But also the fact that I would never set a goal of 8 to 10 miles every day riding my bike,
right?
Until I actually set the first goal of getting on the bike.
Right. And I think that's important. I don't think we're coming up with la-di-da goals.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about here for being a visionary is having progressive goals, step up goals.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying there, Rick. First goal, get on a bike. That's the first goal. The second is riding a block. I love one of the stories of an old nun who struggled to walk, but got out and walked out to the street. That was her first move.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, she set a goal of go a little farther and a little farther. And today, that nun runs marathons.
Yeah.
Now, she had trouble getting to the end of her yard at first, but she progressively moved it. She progressively she didn't set a goal of, I'm going to do a marathon. Her goal was just get to the end of the. I really want to encourage people to have goals that fit them, that are true to them, that do not belong to other people, that are not some fantasy goal that they've seen on the internet or on TV. No. Who specifically are they? What do they bring to the party? What's their uniqueness? And having goals set up to feed the uniqueness in them, I think, is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And when we use the term naysayer, I think a lot of times we're thinking these are just negative people in our lives. These are people that, want you to fail. These are people that, don't want you to be successful. But over the holiday break, I remember seeing one, I admit I was watching TV and I was watching one show, and it was either an Iraqi or an Afghanistan vet their convoy was hit by an IED, and he was paralyzed. And again, so where I'm going with this is, okay, naysayers, these are bad people. These are people that will only want the worst for you. Well, it was his doctors who were telling him he'll never walk again.
Yeah.
And it was the people in the medical community say you'll never walk again. And it was he who said, no, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And of course, he was on TV because he was. So he
didn't do it overnight, and he didn't do it with ease.
Exactly.
There's two big pieces.
And there's a lot of pain to it. And that's the other thing about setting goals. We've got to recognize if we're going to set goals, that means we are going to sacrifice something. Once again, and well, go with that first of all.
So we're going to bring on pain.
Right. So these
the move is painful.
So these doctors in the medical community, yes, they were naysayers. Were they naysayers again? Because I think they thought they were doing him a favor by being realistic about it.
Yeah, there's the word. They saw themselves as giving realistic, professional advice.
Yet he would.
But he had greater goals.
Right. He had greater goals. And so the other part of goal setting. The other part of goal setting is that we have to realize there are going to be sacrifices. And what I mean by sacrifices is just that if your goal is going to be to read X number of books in 2018, and you do watch TV, then your sacrifice is going to be giving up that TV time. But once again, I'm going to go back to my bike example. At first, I was giving up the sacrifice of the comfort of sitting on my couch in order not to get on the bike and reach the goal.
Right.
But the sacrifice I made was getting out in the heat, because we were talking June, July, August in South Carolina, the heat and humidity, and yet the results, and I was losing weight, and I was feeling much better after I got this done. So yeah, at first it seemed like a sacrifice of comfort and idle versus the the bike.
You're right.
But then it was no longer a sacrifice.
And one of the things we're saying today in this visionary idea is you didn't just think about it, you got off your hiney. Mm-hmm. And that is such a big piece of visionary work, is you mentally have to get off your hiney. Mentally, you got to get off your hiney. You cannot sit there and all of a sudden everything come to your house, and all you do is pick it up and everything's wonderful. It just doesn't work like that.
Do you remember when it was real big at one time? It was called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, I gladly remember that. Yes.
But again, there's a lot of legitimacy. And again, we go back to the football that we just had last night, and you talk about these great athletes. But the vision, part of being visionary is you gotta see it yourself first.
You bet.
And you talk to these athletes who are at the top of their game, whatever it is, and I don't think there's not one that says, when I'm out there, I don't first watch, Tiger Woods, when he would say, he has every stroke in his mind first,
right,
before he does it. And I'm sure that, a lot of these top athletes, the quarterbacks, whatever, they got the play already going through their head as to, I'm going to throw it to him. This is how it's going to look. The kickers in the field. In fact, there was a story, and I wish I remember that one. Who was it? A field goal kicker who was just got to a slump, and this was a recent story.
Uh-huh.
And they used a sports psychologist with him, and that's all the sports psychologist did. Was he never had this concept before, but he said, all right, you're going to envision a successful punt every time, or a successful kick every time you get out there. You're going to see it from the minute you run towards the ball, kick it through the goals. This is what you're going to see in your mind even before you do the action. And just that one little training, his percentages went dramatically up because he had it in his mind first. This is how it's going to look.
And Rick, that's part of what we're saying today. What was he feeding his brain? He wasn't feeding his brain the vision of missing the goal. He was feeding his brain making the goal. That was the thought he was feeding it. Mm-hmm. He was continuing to feed it success. And then he was successful. Yeah. What you put in is what you're able to put out. You going on a bike ride, nothing happened when you sat down. Nothing happened when you never got on the bike. Nothing happened till you got out there in the blood, sweat, and tears of it all and made the ride. The ride didn't just happen. You had to invest in making it happen. And that's visionary work. That's what we're encouraging people to do today. Set it down. Set it forward. Put it in front of you. Be accountable. Have other people that you're accountable to. And feed yourself success. And what we're saying is the end of 2018 is going to happen, and you're going to go, what happened? I'm successful.
I would love, one of my goals now is I love that we get people giving us feedback as to the goals they set out at the first of 2018 and the accomplishments they make. And then,
well, Rick, one of the things that we want our audience to know, and I mentioned this last time we did this show, was, in 2016, we were talking about doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't just talk about it, we did it.
Yeah.
We said, well, let's quit talking about it. Let's get it down. Let's get the computer going. Let's put it out there. And to think we have been doing this over a year, and it came from sitting down in 2016 and doing it. And there is a big piece of it right there. We don't. People always like to think, I love that concept of. I was listening to a singer who said, "Yeah, I had an overnight success. Mm-hmm. It took me 10 years to come to a place of where I got overnight success, but I was willing, and I invested in me for 10 years. I went to little podunk places. I've played to 9 or 10 people. That's how it happened. I got in a car with 5 other people and drove through the nighttime to show up somewhere else to play for 10 people. And I today to T.D. Jakes, who said, it would have been a lot easier when I was in West Virginia and working some minimal job, trying to, and he said, I was even having to sell pop bottle rockets to get money, to get gas in my car to go to a meeting. He said, it'd have been easier if I'd have known there'd have been the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas, with thousands of people. But I didn't know that. All I knew was today I have to turn in the bottles.
Yeah.
Today I have to put gas in the car. Today I got to teach the 10 people God's given me. Woo, man, I'm telling you, man, that will preach. That will work. That's how it happens.
And a little bit of the backstory for those, this Southern Porch Life, it did, when we first started talking about it, we were talking about, we have to have these 2 or 3 cameras, and then finally, that's what we said. We said, nah, let's just do it.
Let's do it.
The old Nike, but there's
gotta have this many people. We gotta have this sign up.
Because we still talking about today. If we thought we had ahead of a studio.
We got here. What happens is sitting and getting it and doing it. It's putting the water to the wheel. That's what it's about.
So as we wrap up today, again, hopefully this has been encouragement for you to guide you to start working on that roadmap for 2018. Roadmap, we're talking about setting out your goals. Are your goals SMART? And you can go and Google that again, the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And timely means you can set short-term and long-term goals, be it daily, monthly, and daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. But then keep track of those goals. Don't just write them down, put them up. Keep track of them, because goals are flexible. If you make a goal that I'm going to make $100,000 in 2018 and you make it the first 6 months, then change your goal. I'm going to make $200,000 in 2018. It doesn't mean it's always a regressive thought. It could always be a progressive goal that's going on too. And in all seriousness, I would love to hear, when I say, Roger, I'd love to hear if anyone starts setting goals and the successes you're having with them, or if you're having any challenges, what that looks like, and how do you overcome that. And finally, go into 2018, it's not dwelling on the problems, but dwelling on the solutions. And just have the expectations. We're going to hit ditches. We're going to run off the road a few times, but that's we already know. So are we going to be prepared to get back on the road and keep driving, or are we just going to give up there and that's where we're going to be stuck? So we'll pick this up. Now, I know you can watch on the internet too, but it's called Your Carolina, which is Channel 7 here in the upstate of South Carolina. You can turn that, that's 10 o'clock tomorrow.
10 o'clock tomorrow.
Tomorrow you can turn that on and you can access it via internet, or of course if you're in the upstate, and see Roger as he continues the discussion of being a visionary in 2018 on Your Carolina. And then we could pick up some of this discussion with some new discussion next Tuesday at 10 a.m. here on Southern Porch Live.
Southern Porch Live, be there.
So yeah, and if you guys would do us a favor, those that do watch this, go ahead and share it. We love to see the communities and the demographics growing out there. Again, we are excited as to the international flavor that we have and where it's being seen right now. But it'll really mean a lot to us if you think there's value in this, for you to share it, and so we can get a broader audience. And with that said, Roger, we will see everybody next
week.
Next week. 10, and
on the porch.
Check Roger tomorrow at 10 on Your Carolina, Channel 7 in the upstate.